What is up, friends? Welcome back. We got another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show for you guys today. I do have a hard out at 5:30, so we're going to try and pack as much information in here as possible. Started a little earlier just to get all that done and taken care of. But let's hop right into a screen share. If you're hanging out with us, don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you guys are new. I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping just to get this out of the way. I do have the free waiver wire report up. You guys can see all my favorite ads on here, but if you aren't a member, you are missing out on a lot of more information, just injuries and favorite ads and just basically the whole waiver wire report. So if you guys want to check out the membership tab, please do so. I also have, for members, I have my post-game notes up. So if you guys are a member, check this article out. This is one of the biggest things I'm going to put out every week, where each team's going to get a full paragraph, and I'm just going to let you guys know the usage and what we're thinking about each player. But yeah, basically all 32 teams got a full paragraph there. And then the weekly start sit charts are up tomorrow night for members. We'll be doing a live stream at 7 p.m. Central Time. So if you're not a member, check it out. It's only $8 a month. There are some other discounts in there for you guys. But we're going to get into the waiver wire report. Before that, though, I want to mention Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, back-to-back, did not practice on Monday and Tuesday. So we're monitoring those guys for Thursday night, obviously. This is going to push Jeff Wilson and probably Jalen Wright up the boards on the waiver wire run for tonight. Most of my leagues run Wednesday night. So if you guys do have the ability to push it back to 2-day waivers, I think that's my preferred way to look at it, just so we can get all the information and we get practice reports on Wednesdays for all the teams. It's probably my preferred way to play it. But we'll wait for some questions to come in. I do want to kind of take a peek here and probably just start at the quarterback position. And I'm just, going over ESPN's percent rostered here. I have it filtered by projection. And you can see here, percent rostered on this side. Joe Burrow, only 78% rostered. But Dak Prescott, I don't know why he's only, that's percent start, my bad. We're looking at the percent rostered column here. You got to scroll all the way down. And this is probably if you lost Jordan Love this week, you got to look probably for Tua Tagovailoa. I know he might be without Achane and Mostert. That could change my mind on things, but he's really the first guy you have to think about if you lost Jordan Love for the week. I think Tua's in a good spot at home against Buffalo. We did see Kyler Murray not play amazing for fantasy at Buffalo, but I think this game's at home in Miami. I think it could be a good spot for Tua. Justin Herbert intrigues me a little bit. He doesn't have a huge ceiling. He only had 10 fantasy points last week, but he's going at Carolina. That game, we just saw Derek Carr blow up. Maybe Herbert's an interesting streamer for you. I think Kirk Cousins, I'm probably not touching Kirk Cousins until we see it. Jared Goff intrigues me as a streamer. He's about 58% owned. I don't mind Trevor Lawrence as a streamer. He's about 53% owned. We're not streaming Watson. Honestly, Matthew Stafford might be my preferred streamer of the week right now, assuming one of Achane or Mostert are out. But you got Stafford down there at 35.7%. And on the, Baker Mayfield looked amazing week one. I know it was the Commanders, but I think Baker Mayfield at Detroit, I believe that's the highest. I believe that's the highest implied point total for the week here. So I'm open to Baker Mayfield. Those are really the only guys I'm probably going to stream. You can maybe stream, Justin Fields here. Hopefully he finds the end zone this week. But overall, I think for quarterback, that's kind of what we're looking at. Good evening to Jason. Hope you're doing. Are we still holding on to Corum? I have 5 money leagues. I have Corum in 2 of them, and I'm holding on to him. I think we saw Sean McVay come out and say that they need to get him some snaps. And, if they're going to continue to rely heavily on Kieran Williams, we've seen him be injured in the past 2 years. So I'm still holding on to Corum. He had all the good camp hype reports and things like that. I'm not overly concerned. Week one, honestly, I hate week one. It was not a good week one for me. I think I went 1-4 in my money leagues, and it's just traditionally not a good week for my teams, as I kind of built in more long season projections, and week one's somewhat fluky in some regards. We had some hits, we had some misses, but I'm still not willing to get rid of Corum because someone else is going to pick him up and hold on to him. So if you can afford to hold on to Corum, I'm going to continue to do so. Jason says, London killed me this week, lost by 0.15. Oh my goodness. I'm also worried about the Falcons. I actually picked up in my Superflex league, my most important Superflex league, I picked up Michael Penix before the game started, just in case, Cousins didn't look good or the Achilles, came up on him. But I think I am worried about the Falcons. I mean, it was a really good defense that they played against the Steelers. We didn't see Kirk Cousins play at all in the preseason. There was not a lot of action for him all summer. So maybe this was just a kind of knock the rust out type of game. Some of his throws, and his decision making wasn't all there. 16 of 26, 155, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Not a great rollout here. I do want to see more targets for London, more targets for Pitts. I'm hoping that they go back to the drawing board and figure this out. But yeah, we're slightly worried about Drake London. I don't think, as of right now, he doesn't look like a top 10, top 12 receiver. But hey, it's week 1. I don't want to get too crazy with overreactions. We're going to hopefully learn some more. We get to see him on Monday Night Football. So let's hold off on the Falcons hot takes before we see them in person against the Eagles, which they could be forced to throw in that game as they're playing keep up. Bronson, good evening. We're trading Mahomes, Debo, Waddle for Burrow, CD, and Dobbins. No, I love CD Lamb in that scenario. It looks like you do need a wide receiver, or it looks like you need a running back. So if you're getting Dobbins, but I'm not sure I'm willing to trade for J.K. Dobbins off of one game back from an Achilles. He did look really good, but I still think the bet is that he's probably not going to hold up for the full season. I think Mahomes is definitely over Burrow right now. Like, I actually have legit concerns about the Cincinnati Bengals. My concerns for the Bengals are more real for my concerns with the Falcons, just because it shouldn't have looked that bad for the Bengals. They're playing the New England Patriots. They're at home. I get it. Jamar Chase is his first kind of week of practicing, and no T. Higgins, but I'm legit kind of concerned about the Bengals, and I think Mahomes is just a much better option right now. Debo looked fantastic last night. He actually left some plays on the field, and I think Waddle does it for me too. So I'm keeping Mahomes, Debo, and Waddle, but it's close, but I'm going to hold on to Mahomes and Debo. Good evening to Harris. Hope you're doing well, bud. Week 1, man, like I was looking at my stats going back, and I have not won a week 1 game in my most important league since 2020. And then before that, I think I'm like 1-7 in my last week 1s. It's just not a good week for me. There's always weird things going on. There's upsets. There's a lot of just random ass players scoring touchdowns. And it's the tight ends this week were terrible. I think they were last year too. So let's not get too crazy with the week 1 takeaways. David says, as a Mark Andrews owner, do I pick up Likely? Got the number 1 waiver wire this week. I will say, if you have the number 1 waiver wire priority, you should go get Isaiah Likely. I don't think Mark Andrews is like, I'm not nervous about Mark Andrews. We did see that there was a lot of double teaming and bracketing on Mark Andrews, and the Chiefs basically said, we're going to take Mark Andrews away. And there has been some stats over the last, I think, 5 or 6 games. Mark Andrews, like, the Chiefs have just taken him away. And I think he looked fine. I know he didn't have a great game, but I think he looked fine. Got the rust knocked off of him. And even if you have Mark Andrews, I would pick up Isaiah Likely. I think we're going to probably see Isaiah Likely ranked as a top 10 tight end going forward. ESPN has him kind of as like tight end 12 in that range. But it's very clear Likely's going to be the second, third, sometimes the number 1 target in this offense. So pick up Likely if you have the opportunity to do so. And if you needed a running back, like, that might change my mind. But I think we're looking at a guy here in Likely that should be started as a top 10, top 12 tight end right away. Plug him back in. I don't think he can go back in Pandora's box here. Good evening to George. Who should we drop from these players? Benson, Blake Corum, Javonte Williams, or Bucky Irving, or Tank Bigsby? Okay, so Benson looks like just a handcuff right now. I think Blake Corum looks like just a handcuff. I'm holding on to Javonte Williams. It was a disappointing rollout for the Broncos running backs. We saw Jaleel McLaughlin get more opportunities than Javonte Williams. So of those 3, I'm keeping Javonte Williams. If you wanted to upgrade Bucky Irving and Tank Bigsby and dump Benson and Blake Corum, like, those guys will be on the field. They will offer some 6 to 8 point fantasy floors going forward. I think I'm open to that. And then with Benson and Blake Corum, like, we can't use these guys until we have an injury or reason to if something changes, then we can use them. But for now, if you wanted to cut Benson and Blake Corum, those guys are dead weight right now on our rosters. You could add Bucky, you could add Tank Bigsby. I thought Bucky Irving ran the ball really well. I think he's a guy that's going to continue to get more work as the season goes on. I'm actually nervous about Rachaad White's workload now. I think Rachaad White's still a good receiving back, but we might see more Bucky Irving mixed in for carries. So if you want to, I think I'm open to dumping Benson and Corum, which I still like these guys as handcuffs, but that's what they are. Whereas Bucky and Tank, these guys are both players with a role, and they do have that handcuff upside. So I think you're upgrading your handcuffs, if I will. How much should we bid on Alexander Mattison? Harris, I think it really depends on the desperation. If you need Alexander Mattison to start for you this week, I would be a little bit more aggressive. I don't know how valuable the role is going to be for Alexander Mattison. He did out-snap. He had more routes. He had more targets. And I think he had 5 carries to Zamir's like 12 or something like that. But we expect the Raiders to lose games. I mean, week 3 against the Carolina Panthers, maybe they win that one. But I think this role as a receiver for Madison's not going to go away. And I think if you just want to say, even if you remove this touchdown and say, I'm going to get, 20 yards on the ground, maybe 30, 40 through the air, 3-4 catches, that probably looks like a solid 7 to 10 PPR points per game. So I think he can be a low-end RB2 if you need the help there. If he's just a bench player, I'm not going to bid a ton of money on him. But I think for me, the most I would want to bid is like $12, $15. I think a fair bet for Madison's probably, 10, 11, 12. And then I'll recommend if you're doing free agent auction bidding, don't ever do like $5, $10. I try to stay away from whole numbers. And for me, like $11, $13. I like kind of prime numbers just to kind of get different. But yeah, I think somewhere in that $11 to $13 range, if you're really going to use him, I'm willing to go up to like $15. So I think the role is there, and there's a chance that they continue to give him more work as a runner. Like if Madison comes out and gets 10 carries and 3 catches next week, I think then we're cooking. Is Javonte Williams droppable in a 10-team PPR league? RBs are CMC, Mason. So I don't want to drop Javonte Williams yet. I think he's still a good player. It depends on who you're picking up. You have CMC, Jordan Mason, Kenneth Walker, and Spears. I don't think it's the deepest group. You're starting 149er running back a week, and then probably Kenneth Walker, who's got the abdomen injury. I would hold on to Javonte Williams if I can, but if you need to cut him to pick up somebody else, I understand it. But I think I'm holding on to Javonte. It was a rough rollout for the Broncos. Again, I still like Jaleel McLaughlin, but I'm open to Javonte. Even as bad as it was, nothing worked really for the Broncos. So I'm willing to hold and see what one more game looks like. I don't think it matters who your tight end is. I think everyone should try to pick up Isaiah Likely because any tight end that can put up 26 points and kind of just be a huge target hog, I think is worth picking up. So even if you have Kincaid, I'm picking up Likely if I can. I got Evan Ingram in a league. I'm going after Kincaid. I have Travis Kelce in our fellowship money league. I'm going after. Actually, I added Likely before the game. I don't need to get him. But yeah, I would go after Isaiah Likely in pretty much every format. So yes, you are crazy. Let's go to the PFF recap here. And you guys, if you guys aren't checking out Nathan Yankee's work, it's like a Bible for me. Like you have to look at this stuff. If you guys are gonna want to be like serious fantasy football players, you have to look at the snaps, the routes, and the targets. I'm gonna go all the way down here, and here's what happened. So we got the snaps, the routes, the targets, and the carries. Cooper Kupp played every snap, every route. Demarcus Robinson ran 72 of 78 snaps, 47 routes, and 7 targets. If Demarcus Robinson's on your waiver wire, he's the guy that you want because he's just going to continue to be in the starting lineup. But when Puka went out, Tyler Johnson took over the Puka role. I think Jordan Whittington's a guy that's going to probably they're probably going to install some things for him to get some more work this week. But in terms of snaps, routes, and probably targets, he's going to be behind Tyler Johnson. I do think if you need a guy for this week, the answer is Tyler Johnson. Essentially Whittington to me is like a running back handcuff, where if I can be patient and, maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, maybe Whittington hops Tyler Johnson, but at the time being, it is Tyler Johnson. Whittington did have a run play called for him, which was nice to see. But for the short term, it's Tyler Johnson. Even the Rams beat reporter Jordan Rodriguez mentioned Puka. His backup was Tyler Johnson on the depth chart. So I'm open to grabbing Tyler Johnson. Brandon, good evening. I have 2 QBs in a 1 QB league because I drafted like an idiot. Warren and Mostert, need any advice on who to get? I mean, it's going to be – so I don't like doing the too early QBs because it's always hard to find a trading partner, and you're probably not going to get the value that you paid for on them. I'm probably going to keep Mahomes, man. Something feels good about the Mahomes Chiefs offense right now. But honestly, I would go to your people and say, hey, you got to basically see who needs a quarterback and say, are you willing to trade for a quarterback, and see what running backs are open for trading. So I think there's probably 5 or 6 teams that really like their quarterbacks. If this is a 12-team league, there might be 3 or 4 guys. Go talk to the Jordan Love team right now and see what you can do. I think Stevenson's a must start right now. Mostert, obviously, not really the best health right now. And then Warren's probably not startable at the moment. So you have 1 running back. If you're trying to plug in a starting running back for this week, let's go down the list here. I mean, I'm assuming Jerome Ford and J.K. Dobbins are not available. They're both about 80% owned. Your best bet might be Jaleel McLaughlin, who, again, didn't look great. He had 10 carries for 27 yards. He had 5 catches, though, for 1 yard. So he did get the volume that you're looking for a low-end RB2. So Jaleel's on the list. I think Rico Dowdle, despite the game being a blowout and not getting a ton of work, he still had 8 carries and 1 reception. He's a guy that I think could get more work as the year goes on. Maybe Gus Edwards if he's available, but I think the move is probably Alexander Mattison. And the key note here, again, I think we were just talking about it. In games where they're trailing, they're going to throw the ball more, and you're probably going to want Alexander Mattison in those situations. So against Baltimore, at Baltimore, like I might be starting Alexander Mattison in this situation over Warren and Raheem Mostert. And if he looks good and he starts to overtake that role, then you got something there. So I think Madison's probably your best bet on the waiver wire. If Jordan Mason's gone, you could try and get Jordan Mason, but I think the guy that I want to start this week is Madison. So I'm willing to pay up for Madison. Otherwise, Bucky, maybe Justice Hill is low-end RB2s. David says, would you play Andrews or Likely or both? It feels like a Gronk. I can see, well, Lamar's going to get his 20 to 23 attempts per game, maybe 25 to 30 on the high ends. You got Likely, Andrews, and Zay. Like those guys are all going to get their 6 to 8 targets per game, I think, going forward. For me, now that Likely has done what he's done, I might be willing to go back to the well with Andrews one more time, as teams are now going to have to focus on Likely. And I think Andrews, I'm going to give him one more go. If you want, though, I totally don't. Maybe we just roll with Likely. I don't want to go both tight ends because, as we saw last week, like the tight end scoring was so bad. I don't want to be the guy that starts 2 tight ends. Last week, the leading scorers at tight end, Isaiah Likely, Foster Moreau, Brock Bowers, and Kyle Pitts. We expected them to be top 10 guys. But Jawan, Chig, Parkinson, there's Laporta, Njoku, Kittle, McBride. It's just a crapshoot. So I personally don't want to start 2 tight ends. If I have to choose between Andrews and Likely, I'm gonna give Andrews the benefit of the doubt. And yeah, I'm mad because I didn't have a chance to draft Jordan Mason. Someone took him very early in the league that I have CMC in, and I had Jordan Mason reserved for like one of my final picks, but I did not get the opportunity to. So I took a 0 last night. I just watched the whole Bucs game and Jags. It's still very much white in Tampa. Bucky didn't see a touch till they were up 20. Yeah, I mean, if I'm choosing between Tank and Bucky, I want Tank because Tank's like a co-starter right now. Like he's heavily involved in the offense. So I agree with that take. I think Bucky Irving has a chance to continue to grow with his role. And he looked very good on his runs. I know it was the Washington Commanders defense, but the fact remains Rachaad White did not look good as a runner, and Bucky Irving did. But yeah, Tank Bigsby is the guy. The better pickup. I'm going to go with So it's kind of like an interim thing right now, but I think for the next 4 to 5 weeks, it's Demarcus Robinson. I want to be attached to Matthew Stafford. I think Rashid Shaheed, like we know what Rashid Shaheed is. He's a very boom bust guy. I think he only had 3 or 4 targets in that game. And you know that, you're either going to get 2 for 18 or you're going to get the 3 for 70 and a touchdown. So for me, Demarcus Robinson is a guy that played well enough to start in our fantasy lineups. I mean, he went 4 for 42, but he did have 7 targets. I think that's kind of like a safe high floor. You're getting the Arizona Cardinals, which feels pretty good. I do like Brandon Cooks, though. So I guess if I'm ranking these guys, like long-term, Brandon Cooks is who I want. I'm going to rank them Cooks, Robinson, Rashid Shaheed. Hopefully that helps. Would I drop Palmer or Mike W for any of the waiver wire receivers? So Mike Williams, like we were told he was going to be on a snap count. He might not be usable until October. So I guess if you need somebody now, then I would say yes. I'm still nervous about, Josh Palmer. I thought Quentin Johnson looked okay. Ladd McConkey obviously looked pretty good, but this was not a great rollout for Josh Palmer. I would rather have Josh Palmer over Mike Williams, though. So if you're dropping somebody, I would say it's probably Mike Williams, and go ahead and grab DeMarcus, Cooks, or we mentioned Rashid Shaheed. And again, I like Rashid Shaheed. He did have 5 targets, 3 for 73 to touchdown, but I'm just nervous that, against Dallas next week, we're not starting Rashid Shaheed against Dallas. So I'm going to go for the consistent guys. Give me DeMarcus Robinson or Brandon Cooks there. He would start. You have White. If you already have Zamir White, then Harris. I mean, I wouldn't go too crazy. I don't think Madison's a great talent or anything like that. I think looking around at some of the other bids that are going to be put out on some of these guys, maybe go as high as like $15, $17. I think that's probably where we're at. Brandon says we have London, Tyreek, Kincaid, Jameson Williams, and Ty Chandler. Let me go back here and look at so you got London, Tyreek, Kincaid, Jameson Williams, and Ty. Oh, so we have Ty Chandler at running back. Okay, I feel a little bit better about your situation. I think I'm still going after a guy like Alexander. Like if you can start Alexander Madison, I'm probably going to do so there, Brandon. I don't know who you can cut on this roster. Like Jameson Williams looks like a different player. He was one of the guys that I'm going to admit that I was wrong about. I didn't expect him to transform from what we've seen over the last 2 years. So London, Tyreek, I'm going to give those guys the starting spot. I'm probably going to play Jameson Williams as my wide receiver 3 flex. You can maybe play Ty Chandler, but I don't really want to mess with that against the 49ers. You can start Kincaid. But I think getting Madison, like he would be your RB2 this week. And then if you can find a trading partner for Mahomes or Hurts, I would definitely do so. You have Amon-Ra and Trey McBride. Well, good evening to Kermit. I'm going to stick with Trey McBride. I thought his usage was great, and I expect the Cardinals to bounce back against the Rams. Like McBride's still a top 3 tight end for me. So I'm going McBride over Likely. And then I think you throw in Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams over Likely this week. Yeah. Not the 40 times, not everything. I remember liking Tyler Johnson's tape, but his measurables were pretty bad. And I think he looked pretty good on a couple plays. He's not a player that we're going to be starting in our fantasy lineups, however. So, like, I'm not saying to go and grab Tyler Johnson and start him, but I think he's worth holding on to just to see how it goes. Good evening to Jerry. How are you feeling about Baker Mayfield for week 2? My only QB is Caleb at the moment. And, yeah, you can't start Caleb Williams until further notice. I think Baker Mayfield, we identified him at the beginning of the show as probably my favorite, like, streaming quarterback this week. I know it's the Lions, but Matthew Stafford had a pretty good day against this Lions secondary. So I'm going to go Baker Mayfield week 2. Feel pretty good about it. Well, Pierce had a good summer. I do worry that – so if Josh Downs plays this weekend, like I'm not playing Pierce, not playing Downs, but I think Pierce is worth in the 14-team league. Sure, I'll take a shot on the guy and see what can happen. You know, you're never going to feel good starting him though. He's literally the white Gabe Davis. That's like his ceiling, unfortunately. So I'm not super into it. I'd rather probably add a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson maybe, I do think Jalen McMillan should be picked up in a lot of leagues as a sleeper. I actually think Josh Reynolds could be used from the Denver receivers. Xavier Legette's probably owned. And honestly, KJ Osborne actually looked okay. He went 3 for 21, but he led the team in snaps and 6 targets as well. And then Luke McCaffrey down here actually was the number 2 receiver for the Commanders. So you can add him. Not going to start him, but you can add him. Hey, no problem, Brandon. We got about 8 minutes left in the show, guys. So if you have more questions, fire them up. I do have a hard out at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. Johnny on the spot says Andrews will have a good game this week. They rotate whoever is getting more attention. And yeah, I think it's funny because like week 1 and week 2, like there's going to be these huge pendulum swings where a guy that looked like dust week 1 could all of a sudden change his outlook. And we're literally on a week to week basis. So I'm kind of just I had a terrible week 1, guys. I'm not worried about a lot of my takes. Let's see how week 2 goes. And what are your thoughts on Garendo long term? So really fast. I think he's a little raw yet as a runner. He might take some. The hardest part for Garendo will be just learning the 49ers system and earning the trust of the coaching staff. And that's taken a lot of good running backs years and time to do. So I'm nervous about him just getting on the right page with Kyle Shanahan. And long term, I mean, who knows if CMC is going to hold up this year? We might see Garendo more as the season goes on. I think we didn't see him. We didn't get a single touch last night. We saw 2 snaps, which was kind of disappointing. But I think he's an interesting, fast guy. There's been some comparisons to Raheem Mostert from the 49ers coaching staff. I think I have him in one of my deeper dynasty leagues. And I'm just hoping that when he does get his name called, that he looks okay and we can maybe go from there. So I think he's one of the deepest dynasty stashes for running backs right now. I think for redraft, he's still a ways away. But if CMC misses time, one more game, I think we might have to start stashing a guy like Garendo. Would you drop Warren for Bucky or for budget or I'm not going to drop Jalen Warren yet. You guys got to remember, he had his hamstring injury. It was one game they leaned heavily on Najee Harris in the defense. In games where they're behind, we might see more Jalen Warren. The Steelers aren't going to win a lot of games like that, kicking 6 field goals and just playing comfortably ahead. I'm holding on to Jalen Warren. I still think he's one of the better running backs in the league. As much as I like Bucky, Tank, Madison, I'm holding on to Warren. And yeah, Devon Vele looked interesting too. I still don't love Vele's profile, but he did catch 8 passes for 39 yards, 8 targets. This is the guy that if he does it again, will be interested. And I will say I'm interested. I don't know if we're starting him we're not starting him, but if he has another good game, then we'll be talking about it on the waiver wire next week. So Vele is one of those guys, towards Friday, I'm going to put out a list of guys that we should just maybe preemptively add before the Sunday games go. I always like to have one spot on my roster where it's I'm going to stash a guy, and if the starter gets hurt or if he has a good game, I'm a week ahead on the waiver wire, and Vele qualifies for that. I think in a redraft league, you can drop Adonai Mitchell. I'm nervous that when Josh Downs comes back, we're going to see Alec Pierce and Adonai Mitchell rotate as the number 3 receiver. So I'm okay being a week ahead and dropping Adonai Mitchell. As much as I like him, it wasn't the best game for him week 1. I think he's firmly behind Pittman and then Josh Downs when he comes, and he's going to probably, share time with Alec Pierce. I'll go Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard played every snap and ran every route last night, and he is, until Mike Williams gets up to speed, Lazard is the clear number 2 receiver. He's got chemistry with Rodgers. Johnson, at best, he's going to be the wide receiver 3. Number 4, number 5 target sometimes. I'm going Lazard there. Good evening to Ron. We got Brian Robinson, Najee Harris, or Kamara rest of season, and for Dynasty moving forward. Rest of season, I think. I'm going Kamara rest of season as the guy. If I'm starting just one of these guys blindly every week, I'm going to start Alvin Kamara because he's catching passes and he's getting carries and he's looking good. For Dynasty, I'm going to go Najee Harris because I think he's still got a pretty good role in that offense, and they clearly want to run the ball. He's touchdowns are coming for Najee Harris. So for Dynasty, I'm probably ranking them Alvin, Najee, Brian Robinson. Robinson did get the touchdown, and I'm glad to see that he got some receiving work too, but I just think we're going to be frustrated with Jane Daniels sniping TDs, and just honestly, they're going to be playing from behind a lot all year. So I think if I'm ranking them for Dynasty and for right now, I'm going to go Kamara, Najee, Brian Robinson. Actually, for Dynasty, we'll rank Kamara last because he's the oldest of the bunch. We got 3 minutes left, guys, before I got to get out of here. Mitchell almost caught 2 long passes for TDs. Patience. I do agree with Patience, but I think their number 1 receiver is going to be Josh Downs when he plays. And we're never going to know what we have with Adonai Mitchell I don't think he's startable every week. I think he's just going to be a guy that we're like, he's on my bench and he had a good game and I didn't play him kind of thing. I need more information on Jonathan Brooks. I don't know if he's a lock to be back for week 5. And when he does come back, I don't know what the workload's going to be looking like. Honestly, the Panthers look somehow worse than they did last year. So I'm legit concerned about the Panthers' long-term outlook. I think best case scenario, like he's in our fantasy lineups for like week 6. Because, if he does play week 5, we're not going to use him yet. We want to see what the workload and what he looks like first. Best case scenario, you're maybe using him week 6. I think he was a big fade for me because I thought the Panthers might be in trouble, and I didn't really want to wait 6-7 weeks to have a guy on my squad. I really like Josh Downs. I could see him being the leading target when he steps onto the field. It sounded like he was going to be the guy from the training camp practices and everything. And hey, no problem, Ron. Kirk or Brian Thomas Jr., then Ford or JK. It's Brian Thomas Jr., guys. I think he looked like a legit wide receiver 1. Gabe Davis still ran the most snaps, routes, and looked good. Kirk he's the wide receiver 3 in 11 personnel, which concerns me. I don't think we're going to love starting Christian Kirk every game. Whereas Brian Thomas Jr., I know he's going to be on the field for all the snaps and 2 wide receiver sets, sometimes 1 wide receiver sets. But I think we have to embrace Brian Thomas Jr. He looked good. He's had the massive hype the last few weeks of training camp. I'm going BTJ. And then Ford or J.K. Dobbins. It's J.K. Dobbins, man. Against Carolina, sign me the hell up. And hey, man, no problem. Thank you. I want to thank everybody in the chat for hanging out with me tonight and getting their questions in. I do have to get going, though. I appreciate Johnny, David, Aiden, Ron. I missed a bunch of names. Jason was in there. I mentioned Aiden. Jerry was in there. Kermit was in there. Good to see everybody back. And this is just a rare Tuesday night for me. I think I have somewhere to be pretty soon here. So I'm going to go take care of that. But Tuesday nights going forward, we're going to be 7 p.m. Central Time. And I'll go probably for like an hour. We'll get like everybody's stuff in. But good luck on your waiver wire, guys, tomorrow. Whenever your bids got to go through, hope you guys get your guy. And we'll be back Thursday night live for you all. If you guys want to join the membership, we'll be going live tomorrow night on the membership tab. So thank you guys so much for your time. Enjoy your evening. Good luck on your bids. Peace.